Okay, please drop your hands. So good afternoon, everyone. This is me, Dr. Sameh Galil, and this is A230A. And this is our first class this semester. This is the second semester. Okay, so it's A230A, like I said. It's a very interesting course, and I'm hopeful that you have done some research in order to see how interesting the course is for ourselves, for yourself. So A230A is multi or a cross-generic course where we will have different genres. And of course, by now you know what a genre is. A genre is a literary kind or type. Of course, we have different literary types. If we have literature, and under literature, you will have things like novels, plays, um, what else? Short stories, poems. So these are different genres, and we're meeting and studying all of them. We will have plays, and actually, this is what we're going to start with. And then we will have a novella, which is obviously a different genre. And then we'll move to poetry, and possibly we can have a novel. So this is perhaps the beauty of the course, that you're not limited to one single genre like other courses where sometimes the focus is on drama, where you only have plays. Sometimes it focuses on poetry, where you only have poetry, and so on. No, we don't have that. What we have is a multiplicity of genres, and this is obviously good news for um, the diversity and the variety that comes with it. So this is what we're doing. We're also traveling across time and space. We're also not limited to one single geographical area. It's not England that we're having all the time. It's not, um, and it's not France, because we're doing a novella by a French writer that we're having all the time. We're going to travel across time and space, where we're going to start off perhaps in Italy, if we talk about the start of the Renaissance, and then we move all the way to England, where we will be focusing on the Elizabethan age, and then also the Jacobean age, and under them you will have plays that will take us as far as Italy, and then we move to novellas, and the novella Candide, which will take us to different parts of Europe and even beyond. It's going to take us all the way to Latin America and then the Middle East and Turkey. Okay, and we will go to the Romantics, and the Romantics will also take us to the countryside. Obviously, it's going to be also a different landscape, as we're going to see. So again, this is in terms of place. In terms of time, we will have different time periods. We're going to start off with the medieval period or the Middle Ages, and we're not going to focus on the Middle Ages because that would be out of our scope. But we're going to be referring back to the Middle Ages and even beyond or prior. We're going to go all the way to ancient Rome and ancient Greece. Again, for inspiration, first of all, and also for influence. The medieval period is going to influence the Renaissance and the Elizabethan age in terms of the depth that the plays of the period had, or perhaps the traditions of the morality play, the mystery play. Again, we're not focused on the medieval period. We're going to refer very sparingly to it, but our focus would be on the Renaissance, and especially uh, uh, the English aspect or part of it, where we'll focus on the Elizabethan age and also on the Jacobean age. So the medieval period is a time period. The Elizabethan and the Jacobean ages in the 16th and the 17th century or centuries would be another time period. And then we have the 18th century or the Age of Reason. This is a different time period with a different set of uh, characteristics and elements. And then we move to the late 18th century and early 19th century, where we're going to be focusing on the Romantics and the Romantic movement in poetry and also in other genres like the novel. So this is what we're covering, and obviously we're covering a very huge terrain. Again, when we talk a bit about these time periods, we're going to have representative works of art or literary works. If, for example, we talk about the medieval period or the Middle Ages, we will have the morality plays and the mystery plays as a representation, but we're not taking any particular or any specific work. We're referring to them, but we're not dwelling very heavily on them. And then we move to the Elizabethan age, where we're doing Othello. Othello is a play by Shakespeare, and this is going to be a representation of the age. And then we move on to the Jacobean age, which is shortly after the Elizabethan age, where we have another representative play, and this representative play is The Duchess of Malfi. Again, we move on afterwards to the 18th century, and we will have Candide, and Candide is a novella, and it's a translated novella by the French philosopher Voltaire. When we're done with that, we go all the way to the late 18th century and early 19th century, where we're going to do a number of poems by the Romantic poets, people like Wordsworth, Shelley, and so on. And that would conclude the course, inshallah. So let me check. Let me not assume that possibly we can have sometimes, yeah, Rahaf, we have Frankenstein as a representation of romantic poetry, but sometimes, I'm sorry, romantic novels. But most of the, we didn't do it last semester. We stopped with Shelley. Let's see what time this time around we're asking for the calendar and we're going to receive it today or tomorrow. So I'll share with you and we'll see whether we will have a romantic novel or not. Until then, we are concluding the course with romantic poetry. Uh, anyway, I wanted to not assume that you guys were born yesterday because you were not born yesterday. Uh, and you know a bit about this and that. So I'll drop a number of names and I would like you to tell me whether you know them. You don't have to know them fully. You don't have to be a scholar on them to know them and to know what they do. So for example, when I mention the name or I drop the name Shakespeare, are you familiar with the name? Does it ring any bells? Yeah, I need people to come to the mic and speak. So come to the mic and talk to me.
Yes,
Yeah, Rahab, go ahead. So how much do you know about Shakespeare?
I know how he wrote Hamlet and other
Okay,
plays. He's very famous
nice.
for his humor and tragedies too.
Yeah, yeah, he wrote comedies, not in the modern sense, because comedies now mean laughter and right? When I say comedy in the Shakespearean sense, I mean romantic comedy, where we're talking about love interest, we're talking about intrigues and you know, love rivalries and people having obstacles in the way of this kind of love until there is reconciliation at the end. So yeah, it is true. Like Rahaf is saying, he wrote comedies and he also wrote tragedies. Do you remember or do you know to which age he belonged? Is he modern? Is he w- Rahaf? You know?
Actually, I'm not really sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure because
So
I
yeah.
think I
Mm-hmm.
think he wrote his plays in different eras, I think, or different times.
I
For
mean,
example,
different times means that he lived 200 years, for example.
no, I meant the plays
Yeah,
are set in different times.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
that correct?
He lived, yeah, absolutely. He lived in the, perhaps late 16th century and part of the 17th century. But he was not limited. I mean, he wasn't reflecting only his time. I mean, he would have plays that are rooted in history that would go all the way back to ancient Rome and ancient Greece. He would have plays that have their settings in Italy, for example, like we're going to see in Othello. So he was not limited in terms of time and space. But he, of course, as a human being, as a mortal human being, he was limited in his own time. He lived like everybody else, 60, perhaps 60 something years. Um, so this is Shakespeare, okay? So, and we're doing him. We're doing Othello by him. When I say Othello, does the play ring any bell? Because it's a play, Othello.
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, go ahead. How much do you know about Othello?
It's a love tragedy,
Hmm.
I
It's a
believe.
tragedy, and it is,
Yes.
yeah, it is, yeah, yeah, you're aptly saying that it is a love tragedy, and it is a tragedy of love. It is, yes. Any other ideas about Othello? Do you know the storyline? What happened, when, and why, and how? I'm talking to everyone, obviously, so it's not. I mean, we need to be bi-directional. You say things and I say things. I mean, let's make it a conversation. Okay,
I
so
remember that
yeah.
Othello was very treated unfairly, I
Hmm.
think, and it was about jealousy as well because of his wife. But I don't
Whom he
really
was.
remember the details. I just have
That
a vague
that's
view.
that's fine. Yeah, we will know all about it when the time is right. Okay, so this is Othello and this is Shakespeare. When I say the Duchess of Malfi, does it ring any bells? The Duchess of Malfi is a play.
No.
That's fine. When I say John Webster, the playwright, the writer who wrote The Duchess of Malfi, any idea?
No, unfortunately.
Oh, okay, nice.
No.
Uh, yeah, yeah, and for the time being, you need to remember that he came after Shakespeare. He belongs to a different period, which is not very far away from the Elizabethan age. And he has almost the same characteristics as Shakespeare, in terms of reflecting the time period he lived and talking about the same ideas and themes and in his own unique way, because every writer is obviously different. Okay, when I say Candide, Candide is a novella by Voltaire. Does it ring any bells? Do you know what it is about?
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong, but I think it's also about comedies.
Yeah, it's comic, but in a perhaps sarcastic, I would say. It's about mocking the status quo and challenging the status quo. If I say, for example, I'm happy today. So if I give you reasons as why I am happy, this is good. But if I'm unnecessarily happy, and when you ask me about my reasons and I don't give you any, so I have no grounds to be happy. So you make fun of me, right? Because
Okay.
I have no reasons to be happy, for example. This is exactly what is going to happen in Candide. In the 18th century, people were very happy, were very optimistic. Okay. And Voltaire, the writer, came and he wrote Candide. And he was exposing this kind of happiness and he saw no grounds for it. He said, how come you're happy and there are earthquakes, for example, and people are dying in thousands? How how come you're happy and people are fighting each other and there are civil wars and violence all over the place. How come you're happy and there is pain in the world? How come you're happy and there is disease? Are you getting the point? So it is comic
Mm.
in this sense. It's more of a sarcastic kind of piece of work.
So it's like a social commentary?
Yeah. Partly it is. Absolutely, yes, yes. But on a more cosmic level, because he doesn't kind of attack philosophers and politicians and full stop. He attacks the whole system. Uh, um, he talks about the grand scheme of things, if you like. He talks about the creator and why we're left like this with disease and pain and yeah, it's big. You're going to like it or hate it. I don't know. هتقلب علينا المواجع يعني بس. So let's move on. When I talk about the romantics, when I mention people like Wordsworth, are you familiar with the guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what do we know about Wordsworth?
He's a romantic poet.
Yeah,
He draws inspiration mostly from nature.
yeah, excellent. Yeah, where did you get these lovely pieces of information from, Ya Rahaf? Are you a
I like
teacher
to read.
are you a teacher and I wasn't consulted?
No, I just like to read, so
That's interesting, mashallah. Yeah, yeah. This is what Wordsworth is about. I mean, it's about nature. He is the father of romantic nature. He is the prophet of nature, if you like. Um, yeah. If you go and tell Wordsworth, who is dead by now, of course, that you're um, like a poet of nature, he would say, no, this is obviously not enough, and you're not doing me justice because I saying that I am a poet of nature means that I live in an ivory tower and I am out of touch with reality, which is not true. I wrote poetry where there is a great deal of heavy social commentary. I didn't like lots of what was happening around me, and I expressed that in my poems. So don't tell him, Ya Rahab, that he is only a poet of nature, because that would make him mad and sad and everything in between. Okay, Shelley.
she wrote Frankenstein, but that's all I know.
No, Shelley is I'm not talking about Shelley, the wife. I'm talking about Shelley, the husband, the romantic poet, the
Oh
male
no.
romantic poet. Yeah, he, of course, like you're saying, he has a wife, and this is Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. We may do it and we may not do it. I mean Frankenstein. Yeah, Shelley is another romantic poet. He belongs to a different generation than Wordsworth. He is more into mythology, whether it's Greek, Hindu, and he also does social criticism and social commentary. And he is when it comes to that, he lashes out against the government and the different institutions of society. Uh, uh, yeah, it is being recorded. Yes. Okay, so this is what we're doing. Again, let me share with you our approach and attitude to the subjects and the ideas that we're doing, the plays and the novels and the novellas and the poetry. It's going to be a thematic kind of approach, thematic and also biographical, where knowing about the time in which those plays and those novels and poems were written is very important, is a great deal. It can make all the difference. There were attempts at one point in the early 20th century to separate the poem from, or the work of art from its environment. If I want to read a poem, I shouldn't know about the author. I shouldn't even know the name of the author because that would influence us. If I read a poem by Shakespeare, and of course, we all know who Shakespeare is, right? So I wouldn't be at liberty to say that this is a bad poem because I know Shakespeare and nobody will accept me say that Shakespeare, this poem is bad, right? So there was this lone attempt in the early 20th century, towards perhaps in the mid 20th century, where people tried to separate the work of art from the background and also from the author. But obviously, this was not very successful. But we're not adopting this approach. Um, what we're adopting is this thematic and biographical approach, where in order to really and truly appreciate a piece of work, we need to also read about the socio-economic forces, the political atmosphere of the period. So I need to know about the social conditions in which the play or the novel was written, because we, over time, we're going to discover that the context matters. It makes all the difference, like Rahaf is saying. So taking a play or a novel or a poem out of context and to try to analyze it divorced and devoid of the context, I mean, you'll come up with something, but whatever you will come out with wouldn't be full, wouldn't be complete. Okay? So this is what we're not doing. We're going to furnish the necessary context. We're going to delve deep into the period in its political, economic, and social aspects so that our knowledge of that can inform our understanding of the play or the novel or the poem that we're dealing with. So, knowing about the age and the time period in which the novel or the poem was written can make all the difference. Okay, and this is what we exactly doing. Remember, when I started, I divided the time periods into categories or into, you know, different sections. We started off with the medieval or the medieval period or the medieval times. Absolutely. What's your name? Yeah, that's fine.
My name is Iman. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, Iman. How are you? Okay, so like I said, we have a number of time periods that we need to study very well before we do any given piece of work. Again, we're starting with the medieval times, and like I said, with the medieval times, we're going to have those comparisons between the medieval time and the other times, because obviously there are a lot of differences. Again, we're not, I promise you, we're not kind of dwelling very heavily on the medieval period because this is out of the scope of our course. So, but one thing stands out when we talk about the medieval times. Medieval times is the times before the 13th century. We're going back to the 12th, the 10th, the 11th, and so on. This, ironically, this was, we call them the medieval times, we call them the dark ages in Europe. Ironically, this was the time when the Muslim world and the Arab world was at its peak. We have, it was flourishing in the Arab and the Muslim world. We have technology, we have knowledge, we have what it makes and what it takes to be a big nation, and we were, and we will perhaps be back, inshallah. So we're talking about this period in European history, which was dark. They used to describe it as the Dark Ages, and for obvious reasons, because it was dark. And you know why it was dark? Because they separated themselves altogether from knowledge. They focused on religious knowledge. And obviously, there is nothing wrong with religious knowledge. Okay, the only problem is that they focused entirely on religion and forgot everything else. So everything was interpreted in terms of religion. But there was no room for science. There was no room for secular knowledge. There was no room for geography and philosophy and no. Everything was limited to knowledge taken out of religion. So the period was soaked in and steeped in religion and nothing else. And the church was in full control. Everything was controlled and was ruled by the church. So, and obviously, the people of the church, they may be good in explaining religious stuff, and but this is where they should stop. They don't know about the sciences. They don't know about the geography of the earth. I mean, one of their interpretations, for example, was that the earth is flat. Okay, but that shows you how ineffective they were. So they were dominating the airwaves. They had the upper hand. And obviously, in an atmosphere like this, where you cannot say no to them, where you cannot kind of disobey them, you cannot dispute them or challenge their notions and concepts. You cannot say you guys are wrong. If you say you guys are wrong, this would be the end of it and the end of you, obviously. And of course, you know what happened to Galileo, for example. He was executed because he said something opposite to what those guys were saying. So again, this was the atmosphere in the Middle Ages. It was all dark because science was not allowed. Knowledge in its scientific forms was not obviously accessible or allowed. The only thing that they allowed was, like I said, um, religious material and the interpretation of everything according to religion. Um, so people at the time were not educated for obvious reasons. There were no schools, no universities. Um, and if people are not educated, we have a problem. The government wants to, for example, tell its citizens how to behave. And they normally do that through newspapers, for example, because they know people read and they can pick up a newspaper and they get the laws, they know about the laws, and they apply those laws and obey them. So what happens if people are illiterate, they don't read and write? The only thing that can help here would be the theater, المسرح. Okay, so there were no books in the modern sense of the word because people were uneducated for the most part. So they go to the theater, you write a play for them, so they have people acting. Yeah, they were. So we have actors and playing, and we have messages embedded in the play, so people get those messages and go home and they apply them. Messages like what? Of course, those messages were all inspired by religion and the teachings of Christianity. Like what? Like don't 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 cheat, don't eat too much, be good to other people, um, don't be selfish, don't assume that you are more than a human being because you're a human being and you're limited in knowledge, in ability, in everything. So these were the messages that people got from those plays. And obviously, where the theater and plays were very important because they serve this purpose. So the plays of the time were, for the most part, religious plays, and their names, even their labels, the labels given to them was also very appropriate. One such type of plays was called the morality play. Morality play. And as if you unpack the concepts, it's morality and play. So these were plays that are inspired by ideas of morality. Those were plays that would focus on promoting morality among people. Okay, this is a type. Another type of plays was the mystery plays. Again, these were plays that have also moral content to them, but they were performed by members of the guilds or the professions at the time, carpenters, uh, um, what other farmers, for example. So these or those were the only types of plays available at the time for obvious reasons because they were meant to educate people in morality, in virtue, in religion. Okay. So then there came a time when people felt that, yeah, obviously this is not enough. We need science. We look the other way. We look at the Arabs and the Muslims and we see them very advanced in technology, in knowledge, in governance. They have good government. People are obviously comfortable in their lives. Life is easy. Life is comfortable. So they started to ask questions about how the Arabs and the Muslims were advanced and we are not. So they started what we now call the Renaissance or the Renaissance. And the Renaissance or the Renaissance started at the end of perhaps the 13th century and the early 14th century. Where more specifically in Italy, because obviously Italy is one of the closest areas to the Muslim world or the Arab world. So the Italians were influenced by the Muslims and the Arabs. So what do the Muslims and the Arabs do? They study very well. They have a huge respect for philosophers and for scientists. The atmosphere is encouraging. Religion is there because Muslims are religious by nature, yeah, no doubt about it. But religion assumes a part of their life, and they have other parts that they fill with science, with knowledge, with geography, with philosophy. Of course, you know the names Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, Ibn Tufail. You're familiar with these lovely names, right? So the Europeans said enough is enough. We're not doing any medieval learning anymore. We are going to be more liberal. We're going to be more open to knowledge other than this that was taken entirely and exclusively from religion. So they started to have scientists, and they said, we need to also remember that the Arabs and the Muslims, in their liberalism and openness, went all the way to the ancient Greeks and Romans, and they learned from them. They translated their work, and they got affected by this learning. Why don't we do the self same thing? Why don't we go all the way to ancient Greeks and Romans? And the Muslims did us a very good service by translating those works for us. Why don't we translate those ancient Greek and Roman works from Arabic now? Okay, and we benefit from them. And this is what they did. They translated those works with their philosophy. I mean, I'm talking about the works and the philosophies and the knowledge of and the learning of ancient Romans and ancient Greeks. And of course, you did at one point you did A100A, and you know the names of philosophers like Aristotle, like Plato, right? Socrates, and others. So the Europeans started what we call rebirth, what we call renaissance or renaissance. So the renaissance or the renaissance is a reference, and it's called in Arabic Nahda. Okay, Nahda means what? If you unpack the word even in Arabic, it means that you were in a state of stagnation. You were inactive. Yes, you were inactive for some time, and then you wake up. نهضت. ساعات يسموها يقظة. What does yaqaza mean? It means that you were asleep or you were in slumber, if you like. And then you wake up. So it's some kind of awakening. Yaqaza, nahda. You realized that you were asleep. And obviously, when you are asleep, you miss out on a lot of things, right? So they said there is a lot that we need to catch up with. And this is what they did. They went all the way to ancient Greeks and Romans. They took their learning, they took their philosophies, they took their science, their geography, even their literature, and they got it translated, and they started to be affected and influenced by it. And this is what we now call the Renaissance. النهضة عصر النهضة. Okay, it's going all the way. It's a movement, educational and cultural, where the Europeans said no to the Middle Ages, or enough is enough. We're not playing this game anymore. We're going to do something else. We're going to go to the ancient Romans and Greeks, and we are going to uh, open to science. We're going to have new discoveries. We're going to have scientific development. We're going to go beyond Europe and go to other countries and other continents. And this is what they did. They started this period that we call the Renaissance, late 13th century until the 17th century, and sometimes we call it the Renaissance, and some other times we call it the early modern times. Okay, so obviously we're not going to talk about the Renaissance in every European country because that would also be out of our scope and beyond our scope. For obvious reasons, because we're English major, we're going to focus on the Renaissance and its effects and influence in England, especially in the late 16th century and part of the 17th century, and perhaps a little earlier. And this coincided with the reign and the era of Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth I was the monarch and she was ruling England at the time. And obviously, the English were very lucky because this woman was very open minded, was very liberal in her views, and she wanted to make a difference in their lives by encouraging the sciences, by encouraging the arts, by funding geographical discoveries beyond Europe. They went all the way to the Americas, they went all the way to Africa, and I don't know where else. So it was a very convenient atmosphere, very favorable. So scientists started to invent things, to discover things, and even artists and literary figures started to also try their hands with other genres. The genres up until that time, the dominant genres were the mystery plays and the morality plays. And these came from the Middle Ages. So when the atmosphere was open, even the playwrights, even the literary figures started to say, no, we're not going to adopt those obsolete, those outdated and old forms. We're going to also go all the way to the Romans and to the Greeks and see what kind of literary forms they were using. And they found that in drama, for example, the Greeks were using the form that we now call tragedy. So the Greeks were using uh, the tragedy format or form. We'll talk more about it. So the playwrights in the Elizabethan age under Queen Elizabeth started to experiment with this form, with this literary form. And at the time, drama and plays were the favorite form of expression. Of course, there was poetry, but poetry was not as popular. The most popular form at the time was drama, was plays. And because it was very popular, people in high places, rich people, businessmen, people in government started to sponsor and fund those plays. They were funding them, and this was a system that we now call patronage. So, patronage is about sponsoring and funding a play or a work of art, because obviously, in order to have a play, you have to have a stage. You have to have a theater for that. And of course, playwrights were not rich. They needed somebody to fund it for them. It's not like today where you can find people who can do the stuff for you, and you can have so many people wanting and expressing desire to do that for you. So it wasn't easy at the time. So we have this system of patronage, where when you finish a play, you ask for somebody to kind of fund and sponsor it, and this is patronage, and it was widespread at and during the Elizabethan age. Um, and then we move on. Again, the the genre of choice at the time, the favorite genre was plays. Again, what kind of plays? The tragedy. I mean, those plays were adopting the format and the dramatic framework of tragedy. Again, tragedy in its technical meaning, not in its generic meaning. If you consult a dictionary for the word tragedy, you're going to find suffering and pain. This is the first literal meaning of the word. This is the first entry. But if you move down and you check all the entries of the word tragedy in any dictionary, you're going to find its technical meaning. The fact that it is a dramatic framework that has certain characteristics. So, what are those characteristics? Again, I'm not going to assume that you were born yesterday, and I'm going to ask you before I answer myself. What is a tragedy? Because I understand that you guys did uh, Dr. Faustus, which was a tragedy. So, did you do Dr. Faustus? Raise your hand if you know uh, what I'm talking about. Did you do Dr. Faustus in your AA 100A course? Yes, you did. So, I take it that you guys know what a tragedy is in its technical sense. Let's have Tahani. What's a tragedy, Tahani?
It's a play when the character at the end have sadness ending.
Yeah, it has a
Maybe
sad
he's
and
died.
a tragic. Yeah, it has a tragic ending with the main character or the protagonist falling tragically, meeting his end. And obviously, meeting his end means that he kills and gets killed. And fortunately, let's move all the way to Iman. What more can you say about the tragedy, Iman?
We can say that the main character is normally will be a noble or from the high class society, and then because a flawless thing that happened, whether it was inside his character or outside. So, for example, if he wants revenge on someone, then that will lead to his downfall at the end of the story. For example, Hamlet by also Shakespeare.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Ragad, what do you have to say more about what a tragedy is? Because you're raising your hand, obviously.
Tragedy is like and everything goes wrong
Wrong. Yeah,
for everything he tries. Something it goes the other way.
yeah,
He feels like distress
yeah,
and suffering.
yeah. This is exactly what you're saying is correct. So tragedies are all about exceptional characters. You have an exceptional character, a hero that we call the tragic hero, and he is exceptional. Like I said, he is noble. He is a king or a prince or a military leader. He can even be a noble man, and everybody speaks very highly of him. But he has a flaw. A flaw means a weakness in his character, and that weakness pushes him or prompts him to make errors. And one of those errors proves to be very fatal. So, because of this fatal error, he meets his tragic end at the end. He dies at the end, but it's not like everybody else dies on bed very safely. No, he dies in compromising situations. He gets killed or he kills himself, for example. So this is what a tragedy is. And I'm saying tragic hero, and I'm saying he, because typically mainstream tragedies are all populated by tragic heroes, by males, except for the Duchess of Malfi, which we're doing shortly, where instead of having a hero, we have a heroine. That's why we say tragic heroine. And this was quite unheard of and unprecedented. When we go to it, we're going to talk more about it. But for the most part, we have a tragic hero. Some exceptional character, male character, who is noble and everything, but typical of human beings, he has a weakness. Nobody is perfect, obviously. Okay, so if you have a weakness, it may prompt you to make mistakes and errors. In our case, and because it's a tragedy, one of those errors is fatal. Fatal means deadly, and it causes his tragic downfall at the end. This is what a tragedy is in a nutshell, but we'll talk more about it when we read a tragedy and we start to analyze real tragedies. So again, the genre of choice during the Elizabethan age was the theater, was drama. And if we talk about drama, the subgenre of choice, the favorite genre of choice within drama was the form of the tragedy. Okay. Um, let's now perhaps talk more about um, what we're doing as a representation of the age. Remember, in the medieval times, in the Middle Ages, we had morality plays and we have mystery plays. And for morality plays, we have the play Every Man. Every Man is a play, is a morality play that represents the Middle Ages, where you have abstractions given human um, uh, or they are embodied in human beings. They are given human embodiment. You have virtues like generosity, like bravery, given human shape, and you have vices like pride, gluttony, selfishness. They are also given human embodiment, and they fight in the play, fight in terms of ideas, and obviously the good side or the good party wins at the end. And you get the message. We're not doing every man, we're not doing the medieval period. We're focused on the Elizabethan age, where we have Othello as a representation. So the play that we're doing, representing the Renaissance, representing more specifically the Elizabethan age, is called Othello by William Shakespeare, and it is a tragedy. So if I say it is a tragedy, and by now you know what a tragedy is technically, you can expect what will happen. So if you haven't read the play, and if you haven't heard of the play, even you can almost tell what kind of trajectory the play will take. So if I say that Othello is a tragedy, what are we expecting? Raise your hand. Somebody else other than Rahaf. Um, Yeah, Iman, go ahead.
We are expecting a noble or a person from a high class that everyone knows him, and then because of a flaw that he have or he has, he gonna have about a bad downfall, or more likely that he will die. That's
Inshallah.
what we will expect from
Yeah,
tragedy.
he will die. Yeah, in a tragic way, of course. Not a car accident, I promise you. No, it's something
Yes,
that
especially
he
because
he
we
did.
know how the tragedy of William Shakespeare always happened. Always the main
Yeah,
character end up dead.
yeah, yeah. This is, yeah. It's not Shakespeare. It is the tragedy itself. The tragedy is built on that, and he is using this kind of framework. Okay, that's very interesting. And this is exactly what is going to happen. So it's a pattern that gets repeated in every tragedy, and this is what we're going to see with a measure of difference when we go to the Duchess of Malfi, which is also another tragedy. Okay, so I'm not going to spoil Othello for you. Spoiling it means that I tell you what the storyline is, or I give you the plot, which I don't want to do. I hate to do it. Why? Because I'm going to spoil it. But part of the pleasure would be that you enjoy the play, that nobody tells you what will happen next. Okay? But because time on our hands is not that big and we have short time, limited time, I'm going to relent, and I'm not going to ask you to have finished it by next time because that would be a physical impossibility given the fact that this is also Old English. But I want you to try to negotiate your way through, to read it, even if you find it difficult. Okay? But I want you to also read the storyline or the plot so that when I talk about something, it is making sense to you. So this is what I'm going to ask you to do for 5 minutes. I would like you to go to and Google the word plot, plot or the phrase, the plot of Othello, and read the storyline, read the plot, and it's not going to, a summary of the plot, a plot summary, and it's not going to take more than 5 minutes. So we're going to take a 10-minute break, 5 minutes for a plot summary of Othello, and the other 5 minutes is a break for you where you can relax. Can we do that? So how do I write Othello? It's Othello, Othello. Okay, so you're going to read a plot summary of Othello for 5 minutes, and the other or the remaining 5 minutes would be for you to relax, and then we meet again in 10 minutes. Raise your hand if you understand me. I can see only two people, or now three. How about the rest? Okay, guys, you have 10 minutes, and I'm not going to repeat myself. Othello, a plot summary. I'll see you in 10 minutes. Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, طيب. So what did I ask for? I asked you to go out of your ways and do some research on the plot of Othello. So what do we have? Do we know what Othello is about? Yeah, can I see hands?
Yes.
I can see only Rahaf and Iman, and obviously this is not enough. Can I see more hands, please? And by the way, I'm collecting impressions, and obviously they are not very favorable so far. Let me make sure that everybody is here, yani, from the break. So if you have come back, raise your hands. Let me see how many hands we have. We also have Ragad, Tahani, mm, mm, Sarah. Okay, طيب. Please drop your hands. So I'm asking again about the plot of Othello. Remember, and I remember very vividly that I gave you 5 long minutes to go and read a summary of the plot. طيب, let's have Tahani. So what do we know? Othello. Tahani, you're raising your hand.
Yes, I do. But I raised my hand because I want to tell you I turned here and listen to you.
Yeah, to tell us that you're here. Okay, thank you. So let's move all the way to Ragad. Ragad. What do you have to say about? Do we have two Ragads? Obviously, we have two Ragads. We have Ragad Abdelilah and we have Ragad Zakaria. So Ragad Abdelilah, go ahead.
That's one of primarily themes in the play are like jealousy.
And I'm not talking about themes and ideas now, ya Ragad. I want something as simple as the storyline. What happened, by whom, how,
That's
stuff like that. Yeah.
Rodrigo's hatred for Othello is a jealousy of him. Was jealous of
Yeah.
Othello.
But this is obviously not the whole story. What's the whole? Did you? Let me ask you this directly. Did you read the storyline?
Yeah, but it's too long, so I didn't finish it.
Okay, so that's fine. We're going to take this part. Thank you for it. The fact that Rodrigo is jealous of Othello, or perhaps I mean he hates Othello. Yeah, they are rivals in the love of Desdemona, if you like. Thank you. Let's move all the
Good
way.
afternoon, Dr.
Yeah, good
Sameh.
afternoon, Nagla. Hi, how are you? Good afternoon.
Fine, alhamdulillah. I'm just attend the lecture just now.
That's
Can you
fine.
give me just a summary what you're talking about, please?
Yeah, we're talking
Yeah.
about, you will have to go back to the recording, but for now we are talking about about Othello, the first play that we're doing, and we are looking at the plot. So let's have Rahaf telling us about the plot. Don't know what happened. Rahaf went away. So let's have.
Oh, I thought the mic was on. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Can I answer? It's fine.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so there's this character called Iago. He got really jealous of Othello because he got promoted to be a general. So because
Hmm.
of this jealousy, he wanted to
Because
revenge
I mean, who got promoted as a general?
Othello.
No, Othello has always been a general, and Iago
Oh,
is his assistant. And there was this opportunity and occasion when Othello could have promoted Iago, but he didn't. And obviously, this
oh.
is one big reason why Iago hates Othello so much. Go on.
So he started to revenge on Othello by make giving him thoughts and misimpressions that his wife was unfaithful for him. So at
Hmm.
the end, Othello kills his wife and then kills himself.
Yeah, as simple as this. Yes. Thank you, Rahaf. Okay, perhaps Iman can give us more details. Yalla, Iman.
Yes, I can. So
Hmm.
the story starts when Iago gets jealous because Othello, a black Moorish general, promote Cassio, his second in command. So Iago get jealous of. Ah, yes.
Yeah.
God bless you. So
Yeah.
Iago got jealous of this, so he start planning again with Rodrigo to deceive to
Othello.
deceive Othello that his wife is cheating on him with Cassio. So when they go to a mission to against the Turkish or something like that, they took the handkerchief of Othello's wife
Desdemona.
and they
Yeah,
gave it to
Desdemona.
Cassio. They gave it to Cassio as if they were in relationship. So when Othello knows of that, he kills his wife Desdemona. And
Desdemona.
when the truth came out, that Iago was telling lies and that nothing of that happened, Othello kills himself in despair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the end of it. Thank you so much. Yeah. Of course, there are some inaccuracies that we can handle when we fully read the play, when we read it, when we have perhaps more time on our hands. And this is exactly what I want you to do for next time, to read the play. If you cannot until next time, I need you to read a decent summary. I mean, a summary that is comprehensive, that covers all the aspects of the play, so that when we talk about it next time, you can connect the dots. So this is Othello. And when we talk about Othello, remember what I said and what I promised. I said that you cannot separate a play like Othello from its time period. It was written um, and it was inspired by the age, inspired by the age in its ideas, ideals, ideologies, you know, mores, and norms, and traditions. So no play is written out of thin air, like they say. It must have been written with the concerns and the ideas and the norms of the time in mind. And this is what we're going to dig deep into. So a full appreciation and understanding of Othello cannot happen unless and until we know something about the period, the ideologies and the ideas of the period. So what do we know? What do we know about the Elizabethan age? What do we know about the socioeconomic um, and political conditions of the time? We know a lot. We know, for example, that society at the time was based on the idea of hierarchies. Hierarchy or a hierarchy means that we live in a society that believes in classes and levels. So you have this they call it stratified society, where you have stratas, social stratas. You have people on a level, and you have people in a lower level and a lower level, and so on. So this is called a hierarchy. And at the time, there were more than one hierarchy. You have one cosmic hierarchy that we call the chain of being. And on top of this hierarchy, you have God. And then under God, you have the angels. And then after the angels, you have human beings. And then you have stone. And then you have, until you reach dust, I think, dust. So this is a hierarchy that everybody subscribes to and everybody believes in. That's why in a play like Dr. Faustus, it was not accepted and acceptable for Dr. Faustus, who, according to the hierarchy, is in the middle. It was not acceptable that he wants to be another god. He wants to have the powers and the abilities of a god. That's why you remember what happened to him at the end, because this was not acceptable and this was blasphemous and bad. He also died very tragically at the end. His soul was taken out of him and it was thrown into hell fire. Okay, so this is a hierarchy. Another corresponding hierarchy is a hierarchy on the level of the country or the state that you live in as a citizen, where on top of this hierarchy, you have the king or the queen or the president. And then you have the noblemen. They can be princes, they can be ministers. And then after that, you would have perhaps common people, right? And you go on down until you have the poor. And okay, this is another hierarchy. And people have to respect and honor this hierarchy too. You have a third hierarchy, which is perhaps more universal, and it applies to different countries. It's what I call hierarchy of color, where on top you have the Caucasians and you have white people, and then perhaps you have um, yellow people, if you like. And then at the bottom of the hierarchy, you have black people. Okay, where are the Caucasians or the white people for the most part? Where do we normally see them? So if you said Europe, that's correct. No, in Europe, we're talking about the 15th and the 16th century, mind you. Now, of course, it's a mix where you have white and black people, and, right? So during the time, Europe was predominantly white. So it was only natural that Europeans who were white were at the top of the hierarchy. And then you have people with different colors until you go down to black people. So my question, so we have three corresponding hierarchies. You have the cosmic hierarchy where you have God at the top and you go down until you reach dust. And in the middle, you have the hierarchy within a country where you have the king or the queen at and on top, and then you have the common people at the bottom. And you have the third hierarchy of color, where you have white people on top or at top, and you have people at the bottom. So this is an established order that everybody should honor and respect. Okay? So what happens if in the first hierarchy you have a human being who occupies middle position in the hierarchy, in the cosmic hierarchy, trying to go up, overstep his limits, and he tries to go up and perhaps sits next to God, trying to share the powers of God. Is that acceptable?
No.
No. Under no circumstances is that acceptable. So what happens if you try? Would you get away with it? Will we allow you to do that?
No, also.
No, because if you try, somebody else will come and try, and somebody else will مش هنخلص بقى, right? So we need to give you a lesson, right? If you try and overstep and trespass and everything in between, we're going to stop you. And this is exactly what happened to Dr. Faustus, right? At the end, and in order for people to heed the lesson, he was thrown into hellfire. Okay? طيب. Let's move to the second hierarchy, where you have a king or a queen and you have a commoner. Commoner means somebody like me and you, غلابة كده, right? So if in the 16th and the 17th century, as a commoner, I try to go up and I try to get married to a member of nobility, the sister or perhaps the daughter of the king or the queen. What do you think? Is this acceptable? Hmm. I'm a
It
commoner. I'm an ordinary person. It's not acceptable. So what happens if I insist? Can I get away with it? No, no, I promise you, right? I won't be able to get away with it. I mean, we cannot. Yeah. Perhaps in the 21st century, we have, and even in the 21st century, look at what's her name? Megan what? Megan something, right?
Meghan
She,
Markle, yes.
yeah, she got married to Harry, and Harry is nobility and is royalty. Can you imagine the amount of challenges that they are facing as we speak? Right? Every day they have issues with the royal family, with his father or perhaps brother disowning him, disinheriting them, right? So even in the 21st century, sometimes it doesn't work. Okay. So let's move to another hierarchy where it's a hierarchy of color, where on top you have white people and at the bottom you have black people. Okay, so a black gentleman believing against belief that there is social mobility, wanting to marry a white girl. The white girl is where? On top, at the top of the hierarchy. And of course, the black boy is at the bottom. And they fall in love with each other and they want to marry and they get married even. Will they be able to get away with it? What do you think?
Maybe for sometimes, maybe they can, but at the end, I think that no, they will reach
Okay.
a closed end.
Yeah. Eventually, um, no, because Society does not sanction that. Society does not accept that. We're not talking about the 21st century or the 20th, even the 20th century. I am myself the byproduct of a black guy and a white girl. But we're not talking obviously about the 20th or the 21st century. So this is exactly what is happening in Othello, the play. We have a black guy who is going to fall in love with a white girl, Desdemona. They are going to fall in love and they will eventually, obviously, elope and then get married. And they think that life is going to go well. And over time, there are going to be intrigues by agents of society, like Iago and Rodrigo, and eventually, um, somehow, they he's going to kill his wife and then commit suicide himself again because the match is not a good match according to the norms and the mores of the time. In another play belonging to the same period, we have a duchess. A duchess is like a queen. Okay, the duchess is on top and she goes down and she falls in love with a commoner like me, an ordinary person, and they get married. Do you think she will get away with it?
No.
No, no, I promise you, no. This is what the Duchess of Malfi, the play that we're doing afterwards, is all about. See? And that's why we're using the dramatic framework that we call tragedy, because tragedy is a fit match, because it's a part of it is about suffering, it's about falling tragically and everything in between. Okay? Right. Let's focus more on Othello. So Othello is a character, is the tragic hero of the play that we also call Othello, or the tragedy of Othello. Okay? And we're saying that Othello is operating in a tragedy, and Othello is the main character. So Othello is obviously the one who is exceptional. Remember, this is one of the characteristics of a tragedy. You have an exceptional, one of a kind figure. This is Othello. He's not a king. He's not like a nobility, but he is a military leader, an exceptional one. Everybody talks about him, about his deeds and achievements, military victories. Everybody is happy with him, up to a limit. Okay, so they are happy with him. He is exceptional. Um, Something we need to know about Othello, he's exceptional in everything, but you need to remember that he is not white. Perhaps you need to also remember that we're not in Africa. You need to remember that we are in Venice, and Venice is in Italy. So what do you think? Venice is predominantly white or black?
White.
White.
White. And Othello is black. But he is a leader because they benefited from his services, they accept him. Until he decides to do something wrong. What did he do wrong according to the hierarchy of colors? Do you remember?
He married
Married
Sonia.
Yeah,
Desdemona.
yeah. He falls in love with Desdemona, who is white. and he decides to get married to her. Is that acceptable?
No.
No. Okay. طيب. So Othello is the hero or the tragic hero, exceptional in everything. Um, he has a flaw. Excuse me, معلش. Give me a minute, معلش. Sorry. Okay. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So again, it's about Iago. I'm sorry, about Othello. He uh,
There is no voice.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello.
Now it's
Yeah.
clear. Thank you.
Yes. Good. So again, we're talking about Othello, who's exceptional. Um, but obviously he is overstepping, is doing something wrong, which is the idea of getting married to a white girl because he's black, obviously. So somehow, because society frowns on the whole thing, he is going to be driven into doing something wrong based on society, obviously, in an indirect way. It is going to be framed by the playwright in such a way so that it can appear to us that he has a flaw or a weakness within his character. So, what was his flaw or weakness is that he was rash. Rash means that he doesn't think twice about his decisions, which is very strange and out of keeping with him being a wise um, military leader, a strategist, which is fine. So he is rash, and he also has a set of complexes or insecurities. He is insecure. Insecure because of his color, insecure because of his religion, insecure because he comes from um, another continent, insecure because of the fact that he is twice the age of his wife, Desdemona. So those insecurities will prompt him to believe what Iago is going to tell him about his wife. And the next thing you know is that he is going to, first of all, contemplate killing his wife, and then he will strangle her. He will kill her. And then after he kills her, he realizes that he was mistaken and she has always been faithful to him, true to him. And of course, he's going to regret it, or so regret it that he is going to commit suicide. Again, when you think about it, it has to go this way because society does not approve this kind of marriage. This kind of marriage is doomed from day one. Again, because in the grand scheme of things, a black man cannot marry a white girl or a white woman. Okay? So why do we have that? Do you think this is meant, this is deliberate on the part of Shakespeare? The answer is yes. So obviously he's trying to tell members of the audience, whoever is going to read, to watch that, because plays were meant to be performed at the time, not read. So every theater attendee, everyone who goes and uh, hears that and sees what happens, if he is a white man, he would never try to reach out to a black girl and perhaps love her and eventually get married to. And not a single white woman would think about getting married to a white guy, to a black guy, right? Again, because this is disrupting the social order, which is based on this idea of hierarchy. So there is an established order that everybody is trying to maintain. So whoever tries to challenge this established order is going to meet the fate of Desdemona and Othello. Are you getting the message?
Yes.
Okay. So this is basically what the whole play is about. We're going to talk more about it. I would like you for next time to read Othello, to read the introduction to the age, to know all about it, and then connect the dots. Try to establish logical relationships between the ideas and the ideologies of the age and the play and what happens in the play, because the play is a reflection of what happens in society at the time. Okay?
Sir,
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
do you prefer us reading the plays or watching them?
At the time they didn't read plays. They used to go and attend them, and of course you cannot attend them. You can watch them. Watching them can be quicker than reading them. So watch them and take your time reading them. How about that? So
So
you
you
can.
think it's beneficial to us to do both so we can understand everything?
No, what I'm trying to say is for English major purposes, reading them will benefit you substantially.
Okay,
But
thank you.
watching them is going to be very pleasurable. You're going to like it. You're going to even find literature more appealing. So watch them, because when you watch them, you have more than one author, as a matter of fact. You will have the playwright, Shakespeare, and you will have the vision of the director. So
Oh,
it's
interesting.
So it's a double pleasure when you make those comparisons between the original text and the cinematic or the dramatic version of it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Welcome. Hi. On this note and with this item, we'll come to the end of today's. I think we need to kind of create a WhatsApp group. We're not so many. So let's create a WhatsApp group. Somebody has to do one for us. I don't know. Create a WhatsApp group and reply to my email giving me the link, whoever is going to do that, okay?
Okay.
طيب يلا I'll see you next time إن شاء الله. السلام عليكم. Bye bye.
Thank you, Doctor.